Hello everyone and welcome to The Knowledge. It's a new show here on Racing TV and it is designed to showcase our premier flat festivals during the course of the season. We'll be gathering together a team of experts and they'll be chauffeur driving you through all the things that you need to know in order to unpick and most importantly enjoy our major meetings. This week, of course, it's the Moet et Chandon July Festival at Newmarket's July course. And as a feature of The Knowledge, we're always going to start by taking a look at the course itself. Now, I think we all know that it's a fundamental part of trying to work out the cryptic crossword puzzle of finding a winner, the course element of that. But I think I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure many of you might be, of sometimes underplaying that or overlooking it. So we're going to focus on the course every time and we get an expert on to talk about it. So let's go and join Fran Berry, because Fran is here. He, of course, has ridden the July course many, many times, was very successful there. Fran, I wonder whether you would talk us through the July course, what it's like to ride, what you need in order to win there.
Yeah, Lydia, it's a fabulous track. I suppose the first thing you got to note of the July course, being the summer track of the two Newmarket tracks, is that the rain can change the ground very quickly there. Now, they had rain in the last 24 hours. Ground is still good to firm. Can be quite daunting for two-year-olds coming out of parading there. You got to gallop down by the stands. Normal times it's thronged, but once you get beyond the 2 furlong marker, you're into silence and then you can allow your horse to relax. But just getting to the start with such a long run down to the starts there is key, keeping a lid on your horses. And then riding wise, stalls position on a straight track is key also. If it's on a stand side, far side, or is it in the Falmouth Stakes is Friday the centre, that can have a big bearing on the race because it's a very fair track. It's a beautiful surface, but you can get a lot of congestion there, particularly if the pace hasn't been strong, and that can obviously suit front runners. However, if you're in behind and it gets stacked up, it can be very hard to get going in a race soon enough to make a challenge, and very much pace dependent, and stalls position is a big thing to bear in mind.
And also there's something that can develop during the course of the 3 days, particularly at the Moet et Chandon Festival, is a track bias, a rail bias, or a perceived track and rail bias.
Very much so, and that's one thing to monitor through the 3 days of this meeting. 2 years ago, Vivacious won the Falmouth, making all the ground went really firm on that occasion, and Oisin Murphy made all the rivals couldn't get to her. Alpha Centauri stuck to the far rail as well in 2018. It's definitely a trend. As the day goes on, you'll see the riders maybe just cottoning on to what has happened earlier, or they might take a view that the ground has gone a little bit chopped up on one side of the track and somebody might take the initiative, go to the far side, for example. But generally, what sets the trend early in the day continues through the rest of the day.
Okay, and that's something we'll be monitoring during our live coverage of the Moet et Chandon July Festival. Thank you very much, Fran. There'll be more from Fran later on this show, but here are some track notes for you for the July course, and we'll take a look at those. It's a 2 mile, 1 furlong right-hand bend at halfway. The first part is the Cesarevich course and the last part is the straight Bunbury Mile. Undulations, they run downhill for 1 furlong before climbing to the line, but the undulations don't tend to be as severe as the Rowley Mile. Now, how do races develop? I feel they're variable. Well-judged front-running rides can mean hold-up horses never quite get there, but at the same time, some races get rolling far too far out, and that means that horses you'd essentially written off come through strongly late in that rising final furlong. And as Fran has just said, it can also depend on the position of the stalls. Watch out for evolving, or indeed overstated, rail biases. So you've heard from Fran Berry, we've given you some track notes, and now it's time to talk to Chris Dixon. Chris, where are you?
At Newmarket, funnily enough, Lydia, just up the road from the July course at Tattersalls, looking to try and buy some new horses hopefully this week. But before that, some sectional analysis to bring forward ahead of the July meeting.
Absolutely, as Chris has just said. So sectional analysis, sectional data and how to use it is going to be a key part of the knowledge going forward. But first of all, just in case you're not familiar with it, you probably are these days, but just in case, Chris, how can it help us?
Well, there are a number of ways that it can help us, but I suppose one of the simplest ones is to help us not only see what horses achieve in races, but also what different tracks maybe test and things like that. Now, lots of people that used to detract against the use of sectional times in this country would argue that because of the idiosyncratic nature of our courses, that they were maybe rendered less useful in Britain than they maybe were in other racing jurisdictions. But I would argue that the opposite is probably true, and that the analysis of sectional times can actually enhance our understanding of what tracks test in this country, and also when they test it within a race, and therefore on top of that, what type of horse may be suited to a given track. Now, one of the simplest ways, I suppose, to assess sectional times is to compare the closing section of a race to the race as a whole, and then express this as a percentage of overall race time. Hopefully you're still with me, because it is relatively straightforward. Now, what that will tell you is if the field were going either faster or slower in the closing stages of a race than they were in the race overall. Now, a few different factors would impact that, one of them being the early pace of a race. That is obviously significant. And the other one is the layout of a track. Now, if we focus on the layout of a track for the time being, stiff tracks often produce slow finishing speeds, therefore a number lower than 100 would be expressed. Easy tracks, the opposite is true. And on a flat track, for example, you can reasonably expect that that number would be very close to 100%.
So what can we learn about the July course in particular?
Well, as with all tracks, Lydia, the par times would change between race distances. The July course, the final 3 furlong finishing speed par times, so what you would expect them to do in an evenly run race, running economically, is just over 100% to just under 102%, varying in relation to trip. Now, given the stiff nature of the July course, you might have assumed that number to be a little bit lower, because that climb to the line is very stiff. But it appears that the downhill sections of the July course compensate for that uphill finish. And I suppose they end up making the July course a relative test, an honest test of both speed and stamina. If you delve further into the specifics of those figures, then it's quite clear that the final furlong is very, very stiff. If you take, for example, the last meeting at the July course and use the course track figures, good to firm ground, the final furlong of those races was run around 1.5 seconds on average by the winner, slower than the penultimate furlong. That's around 9 lengths of difference. So it's obviously punishing in the latter part of the races, and you have to see the races out well. But equally, in the 2 furlongs prior to that, the tempo often quickens quite significantly. And at that point, you need some tactical pace. If your horse lacks it, this is the point that they're going to get found out.
Speaking personally, I find betting on the July course the most frustrating course in the entire country. I don't know how you feel at home. I sometimes feel, Chris, that they get racing a long way out. Can we see that on the sectional data?
You can, just even looking back at the last couple of meetings on the July course, when you look at the individual times of when horses from off the pace tend to get involved, you notice that 4th last furlong is when the tempo significantly increases. Now, in a lot of races, it's 3 out, then 2 out, and then the slow finish. But in those races where horses from further back get dragged in, that tempo is often quickened at some point between 4 out and 3 out. It's getting going a little bit earlier, therefore the final 3 furlongs is slower, and it gives those horses from the back of the field a chance to get involved. So it's all about where the races develop, but at some point from 4 out to 2 out, to 1 out, you are going to need a good turn of foot and some tactical speed.
OK, Chris, thank you very much for that sectional tour of the July course. We'll hear more from Chris later on the show, but we need to get on with the big races over the Moet et Chandon Festival, starting with the Dali July Cup. There are 2 Group 1s during the course of the Moet et Chandon July Festival, but the flagship race is undoubtedly the Dali July Cup. We've got a few facts for you about that race. Really enjoy this sprint race. It's probably my favourite Group 1 sprint of the season, actually. And the key point there is that since 2015, it's become the first all-age, that is 3-year-old and upwards, Group 1 of the European flat season. So the first class of the generations until that time, it used to be the Diamond Jubilee Stakes, but that was altered to a 4-year-old plus contest to accommodate the new Group 1 at Royal Ascot, the Commonwealth Cup, which is 3-year-old only. And horses that run well in the Dali July Cup, they might go to 6.5 furlongs for the Maurice de Guise. They might drop to 5 for something like the Nunthorpe or the Flying 5. At the bottom, you see where this race is pitched during the ebb and flow, the course of the pattern during the whole season. Some important things to remember about the July Cup. Aidan O'Brien can become the winning most, or if we're American, winningest trainer if he runs a horse this Saturday. He's currently tied with Vincent O'Brien and Charles Morton on 5. Sundridge has won the race 3 times, but since it became a Group 1, there's been no multiple winner. And look at the fastest winner. That's Lethal Force in 2013, but the track record belongs to the filly, Raffle Prize, the 2-year-old. Remember that the distances were remeasured from 2017, and also the day that Raffle Prize recorded that 109.09. It was conducively fast ground, and there was also quite a strong tailwind. And now we're going to introduce the third of our pundits for the knowledge today, and that is Eddie Fremantle, who joins us from his home. Eddie, we're going to talk about the Dali July Cup. What is the significance of the race for you?
It's always been one of my favourites since I first went racing, really. And it's always kind of a stepping stone race, as you would describe, for the 3-year-olds. Even before the Commonwealth Cup, it was a race where a lot of horses would drop back in distance. Horses like Ajdal, Chief Singer, find their way sprinting, having not so much failed as milers, but not proven themselves as milers. So I see it as a stepping stone race, but it's a massive race in its own right.
It could also mean that a horse bursts through in terms of the sprint standing. Let's have a look at the current BHA sprint standing, shall we? And we've differentiated between this season's and last season's form. So Batage still has an official rating of 1, 2, 3, but he was only ranking or managing to record a performance figure of 1, 1, 1 when 4th in the King's Stand last time. So that 1, 2, 3 is from last season. Ditto Space Blues, who we haven't seen this season, and also Supremacy, who won the Middle Park as a 2-year-old, but finished last on his sole start so far this year. Glenn Shiel were being a bit sort of nitpicky there because he was given a performance figure of 116 when finishing 2nd in the Diamond Jubilee. So in terms of current form this season, the sadly injured Dream of Dreams is the best of British on 119, along with Oxted. So the Diamond Jubilee and the King's Stand Stakes winners. We've got interesting 3-year-olds coming through. The disqualified first place horse Dragon Symbol, who was demoted to 2nd by the stewards, and Rohan, who of course ran in the Wokingham Handicap. We should put this in a sort of global context for you. So 1, 2, 3 from last year's form, Britain's best sprinter. The top-rated sprinter in the world is Nature Strip, who's trained in Australia. He's rated 1, 2, 4. He's a 6-year-old. He's a dual Group 1 winner already this season. That brings his total of Group 1s to 6. And also Eduardo, also trained in Australia, a dual Group 1 winner this season, and he is rated 1, 2, 1. So the kings of the speed at the moment residing in Australia, Eddie.
Yeah, and I think it also tells you, Lydia, that it's not necessarily easier to top the sprint rankings, but it's a lesser figure than that for the middle distance horses. Mishrif and Adabe, who could only finish 2nd and 3rd in the Eclipse the other day, they're both rated around 1, 2, 5. So the jump from top handicappers into the top echelons or listed or Group 3 horses into the top echelon sprint is not so great. And I think as a result, you get more competitive races.
Let's have a look at this competitive race, shall we? Take a look at the betting. This is at the time of recording. We have Starman 4-1 joint favourite with Dragon Symbol, 9-2 Oxted, 13-2 Rohan, and 15-2 and upwards the rest. We're going to start, Eddie, by looking at Oxted's victory in last year's July Cup, in which he had Brando in the backwash.
Yes, very much different way of Oxted racing this season. He seemed to travel up much more strongly than he has this year, and he was always close up. You'll see he just edges right towards the stand side in the closing stages, and that's something that he tends to do. He's well on top at the line. He won with some authority. This was him bursting onto the big big time, really, having been a really smart handicapper the season before. This season, he seems to have been slow to come to hand, Lydia.
Yes, he has, but he bounced right back at Royal Ascot last time, over 5.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting move by Roger Teal, his trainer, because you wouldn't have thought that the horse would relish going back to 5. And indeed, early on in the race, he was taken back and then struggled to go the pace. But it all played out well because they went too fast. Horses like Batash was in front too soon, and Oxted came sweeping through to lead. He'll have to be back in the sort of strong travelling form he was in last year's July Cup, I think, to win this year, because he's got horses like Starman, who's beaten him already in the lineup.
You mentioned Starman and the Duke of York. Let's have a look at that race. It features a cast of thousands who potentially reoppose in the July Cup.
Yeah, I think there's something like 8 of these who finished behind Starman, who won, Oxted, who was third. And you see they're on different sides of the track here. Starman beginning his run, chasing Emiratiana in the yellow on the far side, and travelled smoothly throughout. Oxted did travel okay, but once he came off the bridle, you'll see he just starts to show that trademark drifting to his right. And he couldn't have any answer to the pace of Starman, who possibly was slightly advantaged by being on the far side. The horse in second, Nahar, came from a long way back and certainly wasn't happy with the steady early pace for the first couple of furlongs. I don't envisage it being such a steady pace on Saturday. So Starman's got to step forward again. He's done very little wrong in his career except one poor run on very soft ground, which he didn't like, and he missed Royal Ascot as a result. That might be a blessing in disguise. He didn't have a hard race that, for instance, Oxted did at Ascot.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, let's take a look at Rohan, who's made a lot of headlines after Royal Ascot. He won the Wokingham Stakes. He also ran down Dragon Symbol, who was first past the post in the Commonwealth Cup and then demoted.
Yeah, Dragon Symbol's another horse who tends to head right, and it cost him the race at Ascot. You'll see this race at Haydock, he racing just about on his own on the stand side. Edges right. Rohan comes from last, and at the line, he just looks like he's had enough. But I suspect he's been in front for his standards a long time, and he was just idling. He's a horse with tremendous talent. He showed that in the Wokingham. Wasn't allowed to run in the Golden Jubilee in the Commonwealth Cup because he's a gelding, but he gained a big consolation prize in the Wokingham when slightly more patiently ridden by Shane Kelly. He had his nose poked in front near the line. Now, if they go hard, he's going to be a big player. But the Rowley Mile didn't entirely seem to suit him earlier in the season. I think he's a more battle-hardened horse these days.
And how about Dragon Symbol at this track?
Again, I don't like the way he edges off a true line. He just does one or two things wrong. He's doughty. He really battles hard, and I think that'll stand him in good stead. And he's clearly improving as well. OK,
let's take a look at the mare Chill Chill, shall we? She's a fast-improving handicapper, Eddie.
I think she's a bit better than a handicapper. This was the handicap she won at Newmarket, having been a bit unlucky in the run first time out. And you'll see she shoots clear. She's level with the horses just over a furlong out when she takes the lead, and then whizzes away from them. Now, the grey horse back in second place, Lord Rapscallion, has continued to run really well in some good handicaps and was close up in the Buckingham Palace at Royal Ascot. Chill Chill herself has gone on to win a Group 3 with a lot of authority, I think, at Newcastle. I think she's been a bit overlooked in the betting for this race because, like Oxted last year, she's making strides very quickly. She's got the tremendous turn of foot. She's shown herself adept on the Rowley Mile. I think she'll handle the track. The ground's right in her favour, fast ground. I think she's a big player.
Yep, I tend to agree. Now, at the time of recording this, we don't actually have the final field for the Dali July Cup, but one of the potential horses from left field is Thunder Moon, Eddie, who, of course, has top-class 2-year-old form.
Yeah, I'm sort of going back a couple of horses in recent year. This is the Dewhurst, where Thunder Moon was, in the end, quite well beaten behind St Mark's Basilica. We know how good that horse is over middle distances this year, but he got to St Mark's Basilica briefly, the horse in the red colours, but then just faded in the closing stages. Now, they've tried to stretch him out, not surprisingly, for the Guineas this year, and he ran really badly in the Guineas and finished last. better run, I think, in the St James's Palace at Royal Ascot last time. Again, he appeared not to stay the mile, but he was given an awful lot to do and came from an unpromising position. His jockey rather gave up on him. There have been a couple of horses with similar profiles win since the Commonwealth Cup started. US Navy Flag in 2018. If you go back a bit further, Dream Ahead finished only 5th in the St James's Palace before dropping back in Trip to Win. So it's a system that's been used by other trainers in the past. If Joseph O'Brien brings Thunder Moon, he could well be a player.
I'm glad Eddie mentioned Dream Ahead because he comes up later in the show. But Eddie, your conclusion about this year's Dali July Cup?
In terms of the betting, I think they've got the right horses at the front: Starman, Oxted, and Dragon Symbol. But I do think people have overlooked Chilchill's prospects of making that leap forward. She's, if you look strictly on the rating, she's rated 110, but she gets through £3 allowance. That makes her 113. She's only got £5 or £6 and she's in there and she's been winning with plenty in hand. So I think Chilchill's been overlooked.
Okay. Chill then for Eddie. Eddie, thank you very much. Again, we'll hear more from Eddie later on in the show. Now it's time for a bit of nostalgia. Again, every time that we have the knowledge, there'll be a section of the show where we look back on a particular running of a race from the meeting that we're featuring. So Fran Berry rejoins me and we're going to look back at the 2011 Dali July Cup, which was won by Dream Ahead. Fran, let's take a look at the runners and riders first of all. 16 runners then, and you can see that Frankie Dettori was on Delegator, who was pretty well fancied. That horse had won the Duke of York going into this. Star Witness, who had come over from Australia, had run twice at Royal Ascot, finishing second to Prohibit in the King's Stand and third to Society Rock in the Golden Jubilee, what was then the Golden Jubilee. Dream Ahead had Hayley Turner on board. More of that in a moment. Elzarm was there for Richard Hills as well. I should have mentioned on the first page Bated Breath as well, who is a 4-year-old and still improving. So, Fran, this was the first year of the Dali July Cup's removal from a Thursday to a Saturday. And this was relevant to Hayley Turner getting the ride on Dream Ahead because his usual rider, William Buick, was needed at York. Jamie Spencer had to ride Cape Blanco in America. So trainer David Simcock called up Hayley.
Yeah, and a fantastic ride to pick up. Obviously, she was a beneficiary of that controversial move to a Saturday. It still caused problems probably to this day, Lydia, but it worked out very well for Hayley. Dream Ahead, what a 2-year-old he was. When he won the Middle Park in that devastating style at the back end of the year, he was awesome, despite having that tendency to hang left. And he was coming to the July Cup on somewhat of a retrieval mission, if you like. He'd been tried connections that asked him to go a mile behind Frankel and Zoffany in that famous fastly run St James's Palace Stakes, where he actually didn't shape too bad, but given his lack of sprinting experience, taking on older horses in the July Cup, it was a big ask and he duly responded to it. You can see him winning the Middle Park here, the way he quickened up, and there's a tendency to go left, which was a trademark of his career throughout. Rory Cleary, the Guineas winning rider, actually rode him in a breeze up sales prior to David Simcock buying him, and he said he was the best horse he ever rode, except he couldn't keep him straight, and that proved to be key to him. You can see here in the Dewhurst as well behind Frankel on this occasion. Maybe he was a bit flat after a big effort in the Middle Park. He'd been to France, he'd been into Middle Park, putting in a huge effort, and yeah, we couldn't have saved the trip that day. Maybe just one run too many at the back at the end of the year in the Dewhurst.
Yes, because he'd been probably the best winner of the Middle Park for about a quarter of a century. He was rated by the BHA champion 2-year-old alongside Frankel. Think on that. And it had been a difficult spring as well. David Simcock had been unable to train Dream Ahead on grass. So the 2,000 Guineas, the French 2,000 Guineas, they both went west and he ended up running in that St James's Palace Stakes, as Fran said. Right. Let's examine the race itself, shall we? If we go to the start, we can check out where they all are. Dream Ahead is in stall 2, Start Witness in 10, Delegator is out on the wing in 17, Elzarm in 3 and Bated Breath in 9.
Yeah, and this could be relevant for next 3 days, Lydia. Librano finished fourth, was drawn in stall 1. He made the running on the rail. Beta Brett, stall 9. Steve Drown can't get cover on him, but he wants to get stand side. The whole field wants to get towards the stand side. Richard Hills is in the box seat on Elzam, travelling well, and Hayley Turner is in the pocket behind him, but she's got 2 horses in front of her who are going to bring her theoretically down to the 2 furlong marker, and what happens after that will happen. And there's a key point in this race going to the 2 furlong marker where Elzam begins to weaken. Steve Drown tries to edge across to shut the door on Dream Ahead to try and get the rail, and doesn't quite get there. When Steve pulls whip through his right hand, that just leaves enough room between the weakening Elzam and Beta Brett just to get through. And Dream Ahead had gears to get through the gap as well, which was key to it. And Haley's had to switch around Beta Brett, and then going quicken up. And the turn of foot he showed to get up and beat Beta Brett was quite taken. He did go left, right on the line, but he only seen daylight inside the last 100 yards. And it's the second time he'd nabbed Beta Brett on the line.
He was well on top. It was quite a cosy victory in the finish. Afterwards, people were saying Delegator, he was a little bit unfortunate, out on the wing, switched more towards the stand side rail, and then had to weave through himself.
Didn't have the tactical speed. He was a good winner in York and a bit of a revelation that year after being, second to see the Stars and the Guineas as a 3-year-old, beat by Master Craftsman and one of the back-end Group 1s as a 3-year-old, and switching to Godolphin and down to 6 furlongs at that stage. Just didn't have the tactical speed and on that track on that day.
And the significance, of course, for Hayley Turner. She became the first jockey in Britain, female jockey in Britain, to win a Group 1 outright. Of course, Yarmulke, with Alex Greaves on board, had dead heated in the Nunthorpe previously, but this is a significant milestone. Of course, she went on to double that just a month later, Fran, by winning the Nunthorpe with Margot Did.
That's right, yes, Margot did, of course. And Dream Ahead, it's interesting, she never got to ride him again. That just illustrates that busy Saturday in July, how it can create opportunities for different riders. And Hayley Julie made use of that. It really set her up, didn't it? She was on the way up the ladder at that time, but it just put her in a different bracket. She ended up picking up a Group Grade 1 winning ride in America for David Simcock on the back of that also the following year.
Absolutely. And so winning in the colours of Khalifa Dasma. And David Simcock went on with Dream Ahead to win the Sprint Cup, narrowly defeating Bated Breath again, and then taking no less a scalp than Goldicova in the Prix de la Forêt over 7 furlongs. And Dream Ahead went on to be a decent sire. And we think of Dream of Dreams, a dual Group 1 winner, Don Juan Triumphant, he's won the Group 1s. Glass Slippers, who won, of course, over in America at the end of last season, and Al Wakar, who's even stretched out to a mile. And despite that pronounced knee action, he didn't necessarily need cutting the ground.
He did not, and as a rider and as a pundit now, we kind of pigeonhole his progeny as wanting soft ground. When you rattle off the names of them horses, Glass Slippers winning in Keeneland, which you might talk about later in regards to Mother Earth, that was the firmest ground a lot of riders have ever ridden on. So it's sometimes unfair to pigeonhole sires or the progeny or race horses as just being effective on one surface.
Okay, Fran, thank you very much for your thoughts. And now let's enjoy the 2011 Dali July Cup, as we did at the time, in the company of Ian Bartlett.
They're off. They get away as they come out of the gates. Winker Watson reared slightly as they begin to settle down. Elzam and Librano towards the near side, most edging towards the stand side rails. Bated Breath is up there. Oracle and also Amico Fritz showing in good positions. Winker Watson and Genki are the back markers. And in the yellow and green, Librano against the stand side rails leads up to Elzam. Bated Breath is there from Hitchens, Amico Fritz and Oracle. Jimmy Styles, Dream Ahead's against the rails. Monsieur Chevalier behind this, then comes Dalgar. Genki behind this from War Artist. Delegator last but 2 at this stage. Winker Watson's the back marker, already down to the final quarter mile they come. Librano to Elzam in second place. Bated Breath, Dream Ahead travelling well in behind these. Amico Fritz and Star Witness the next 2. Hitchens just in behind those as they head to the closing stages. Librano, Dream Ahead trying to get through. There is Bated Breath as well. Hitchens just in behind these. Uphill they come to the line. Bated Breath has taken it up. Dream Ahead trying to get through. Hitchens just in behind that. Bated Breath in front. Dream Ahead though joining in with Hayley Turner, and Dream Ahead has won the Dali July Cup to Bated Breath, and in third position was Hitchens. It's a blanket for fourth.
I don't know about you, but I love a good handicap, and I think they're an essential part of our banner meetings during the flat season. Eddie is back where he belongs, amongst the safety of some sprint handicaps. That's what we're going to be talking about right now. Let's start by looking at the banner handicap, really, the iconic handicap of the Moet et Chandon July Festival, and that is the Bet365 Bunbury Cup, for which Perotto is the 15-2 favourite. Then Amethyst at 8-1, and it is 12-1 and upwards the rest. Eddie, break my heart by talking about how Kinren beat Brunch at York last time. He's a key player in the Bunbury Cup.
Yeah, Kinren, a horse who's been so frustrating to his followers over the years. Finally, everything went right for him at York. He was taken right back to the rear of the field from his wide draw. And that meant he had to come from last. He's an extremely talented horse. This was a mile. I think he'd be equally effective with a strongly run 7. This is the way it all dropped right for him. You'll see he's still in the rear, and now he's searching for a run on the outside with Brunch in the noseband going clear on the far side. Kinren has to do a lot of work to get up and beat Brunch. He's done this so many times and not won. This was his day. And I think it's coincided with an upsurge of David Barron's horses' form this season. They have been generally running so much better this year than the last 2 or 3 years. And Kinren gets the chance to show that wasn't just a one-off in terms of him getting to the front. In another big field handicap, he tends to run well in all of them he runs in.
Yeah, he's very effective at a variety of distances. Let's move on to Amethyst, shall we? He's found a real run of form. He's on an unbeaten sequence at the moment, Eddie, and he's beaten on a session quite comprehensively over the course and distance earlier this season.
He did. You'll see on a session goes past him in the middle part of the race, but Amethyst just begins to come under pressure, but boy, does he respond to the pressure, and he flashes home from overtaking 6 horses in the closing stages to win with something up his sleeve. Just the ideal prep for this race, course and distance, and he looks like a young horse going forward very quickly. And importantly, the penalty he gained for this win gets him in the race, whereas 1 or 2 others of the 3-year-olds are going to be left out high and dry.
Let's move on to some Chelmsford City form, shall we, that involves Caravana, Pistoletto and Bashir. Caravana is drawn wide, as is Pistoletto, and Caravana comes through to beat Highland Princess, who goes on to win the Buckingham Palace at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, indeed, so strong form, and nobody can ignore the all-weather form these days. And Caravana had a terrible trip here, ran really poorly at Ascot, but was asked to chase the pace and a strong pace and didn't get home, and that was probably the reason for his defeat. He's a horse with a tremendous turn of foot. The stable have been in much better form the last couple of weeks than they had been. I think he showed here what he's capable of. Pistoletto will probably be one of the also-rans if he manages to get in. He needs 14 or 15 to drop out, I think. And Bashir looked held on that form.
Yeah. Tend to agree. Right, let's move on to some Goodwood form, and this is Ross Collins' victory, his penultimate one. He had Udalali behind him in second. Since then, Eddie, Ross Collins has come out and been a wide margin winner at Epsom.
He has. He's clearly was in really good form going into this. There's a chance he'll go to Chester on Saturday and miss this race because he's in a listed event at Chester, and the soft ground there is going to suit him much better, I think, than the good to firm. But the runner-ups of interest, Udalali, because he got just caught in a pocket briefly, but he boxed on, and finishing second was no disgrace in this company. And he's gone on to win since at Newcastle, very much suited by a straight course. And Andrew Baldy's got a pretty strong hand in this race. He's also got Symbolize, who ran very well at Royal Ascot on the wrong side. And he did have Grove Ferry in the race, but taken that one out. So that would have had a good chance. So with Symbolize and Udalali, I think the stable is well represented.
I'm encouraged. I like Udalali, so I'm encouraged that Eddie does as well. Right, final bit of evidence to show you. This involves Perotto and Pistoletto again, this time at Goodwood. A last-gasp success from Perotto, who's gone on to win the Britannia at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, he was very badly drawn here on the wide outside, as you can see from the highlight. William Buick took a bit of time to try and get him in, and he couldn't quite do that until, well, he managed to do it, but then pulls out again as you see them coming to past the cutaway. Ducks back inside, and he does look like he's got an awful lot to do, and he has, but he does it in pretty taking style. Similar story in the race at Royal Ascot, the Britannia, where he's come swooping through with this late run. The trip was a mile at Ascot. It's just a question of whether he can truly be effective at the longer trip, at the shorter trip, and whether he gets in here, because he needs 5-6 to drop out. He's number 26 in the list. So Amethyst will have another 3-year-old against him, a big, strong, late-running 3-year-old, just as he is, if Perrotta gets in the race.
So your conclusion for the Bunbury Cup, Eddie?
I've left Caravana in because he's a horse of immense talent with a tremendous turn of foot. He's the one that the market hasn't seen. You see, he's out there at about 25 to 1. He's in the bar prices. Perrotta and Amethyst, the sexy, improving 3-year-olds. You can't rule them out. Kinran, he's always going to be thereabouts in these races. Motte KL, who's won the race before, has a very big weight, but he's been running well this season. It's your usual competitive race. We're going to know a bit more about the draw and about the going come Saturday morning. But at the moment, I'm going to go with Caravana and Udalali as the 2 outsiders.
And funny enough, when we were looking back at the 2011 July Cup, the race preceding it was the Bunbury Cup. Bray Hill came to the standside rail, raced alone and won. So those are the kind of things that can happen during the course of the festival. And that's why there was such a rush to that standside rail for the Group 1. Let's move on to the 6 furlong 3-year-old handicap, which is one of the features on the first day of the meeting. And Boom Shalar is the 9-2 favourite ahead of Blackrod at 7-2, Jumbie at 15-2. It's 10-1 and upwards the rest. We're going to start by looking at Jumbie, and his first run of the season was a really encouraging one. He's up against 2 horses that at this stage are entered in the July Cup. The winner, Creative Force, who's gone on to win at Royal Ascot, as has the 4th Rohan.
And you can make a case for Jumbie being unlucky not to beat them here. He's tied up near the rail while the others get a clearer run down the outside. Creative Force, once he gets out, is unstoppable. But Jumbie's still looking for that run while Creative Force is in the business of winning the race. By the time he gets out, you see Jumbie with Rohan on 2 to his outside. Seems to finish off stronger than Rohan. We know what a strong finisher Rohan is from his group successes since. So I think Jumbie's still well handicapped. He's gone up a lot. He doesn't, he faces 1 or 2 rivals from his other win at Newmarket on worse terms. This is his win here. Jadwal, who's on the outside of the field in the Shadwell Silks, and Just Frank over on the far side, who really was inconvenienced by having to race with just one other. That one other, incidentally, is Perotto, so that form's really held up well. Jumbie, who's flying at the finish to win, I think wins with a bit in hand. He's quite a bit. I think 3 or 4 pounds worse off with the runner-up, but I think he'll hold him again if he comes back in that sort of form. Now, he's since run badly at Royal Ascot, but the ground wasn't probably not in his favour there, and it probably will be tomorrow. So he's drawn right down the middle in stall 10. I remember his jockey Charlie Bishop winning right down the middle on Deeds Not Words in this race a few years ago. And it really is a suck it and see thing with the draw. Quite often the centre is the place to be on the first day, sometimes the far side, and occasionally they can come up the stand side. So we're not really sure about the draw yet, although the speed mainly high with Just Frank in stall 18, but Jadwal on the other side of the track in stall 3.
OK, I have one last piece of evidence for us to discuss, and that is When the Dealing's Done, who ran at Newbury last time we saw him.
Yes, this was the last time he ran it on one of our courses, but this was last year as a 2-year-old. And you'll see he shows a good turn of foot to get to the front. And then he was a bit of a baby last year, and he just idled a bit. But the front 2 is still pulling away. The second horse has gone on to do OK in handicaps. And When the Dealing's Done, then rather lost his form after a muddling run next time out at Salisbury and never regained it until a gelding operation and the fitting of cheek pieces found him back in winning form at Windsor last time. Now, he's paid for that with a £6 penalty for this race, but that was 5 furlongs. A similar tactic Roger Teal has adopted with Oxted, putting him back to 5, winning, then going up to 6 for this race. I think he raced on the wrong part of the track at Windsor. He's the only horse all evening to do anything under the stands rail. I think he's ahead of the handicapper still, Lydia. Doesn't look well in on his early form at Doncaster this season, but the cheek pieces, Ryan Moore in the plate, I think they make the difference to this horse.
OK, knowledge. So, Eddie, that's your conclusion, is it? That's the horse you're going with?
Yep, when the dealing's done for me, Lydia, I think you could make a good case for Popmaster at about a similar price, but I'm going with Roger Teal.
Now we're going to hear from Chris Dixon again, because he's going to use sectional data to try and understand how he thinks the 6 furlong 3-year-old handicap is actually going to pan out. Take it away, Chris.
Well, as is often the case, Lydia, in big field handicaps, you expect that they're going to be a well-run race. And this, I don't think, will be any different. Timeform sectionals have been taken at this meeting since 2015, when the Future Stewards Cup and 3-time group winner Magical Memory took the race. If you look since then, during that period, the finishing speed, the closing 3 furlong split, has recorded a finishing percentage between 99.5% and 101.7%. So they've been well-run races, or very close to par, or a little bit quicker than par. Having said that, it's still a race that has often been dominated by horses that haven't been too far from the gallop. Now, front runners have struggled to actually hang on, but it's those that are able to travel well just in behind the pace, no further back than mid-division, that have tended to come to the fore. The closers regularly get involved, but they get involved too late and tend to pick up the pieces, finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th, rather than actually coming home in front. Now, just looking at where the pace is this time around, I think there's bits and pieces of it right across the track. The strongest pace is likely to be in the higher numbers, with Just Frank, who's quick, he's keen, and he regularly runs in races that record low finishing speed percentages. So I think he's going to set the strongest gallop, and he is in the higher numbers. If you're with a lower drawn horse, there are 1 or 2 horses that might give you a bit of a drag into the race. That means that Jadwal might be in a less than ideal position in the lower stalls, but he is an ideal type on paper, I think, given his strong travelling style. And I love the way that he shaped when on the wrong part of the track, it seemed, at York last time out. So a double figure price, I'll give him a little bit of a chance. While in the higher numbers, I thought that Spycatcher from 13 looked of some interest. Him and Blackrod were the 2 horses that I liked the most, but I think Spycatcher has that little bit more tactical pace to sit closer, and given that's where I'm anticipating that you want to be, just in behind the leaders, no further back than mid-division, I'll go with him on his handicap debut. So a couple for me in that competitive race, Jadwal and Spycatcher.
So the 2-year-olds are a key part of the July Festival, and I'm really looking forward to what develops during the course of the 3 days. Eddie Fremantle is alongside again. We'll have a focus on a couple of the key races in a moment, but let's see where the BHA sees it at the moment amongst the best 2-year-olds that we've seen so far in 2021. These are, I should note, on British soil or by British trained horses elsewhere, and I've compared these against where Timeform have the juvenile standings at the moment. Interestingly, they have Atomic Force and Go Bears Go the other way round. They also rate the Cheshire form that little bit more highly. So we're talking about the form of the Cheshire, which the Point Lonsdale for Aidan O'Brien, and also Reach for the Moon for John and Thady Gosden. The Timeform have taken a more positive view about that. And they also have 2 Fozzie Stack trained 2-year-olds in their top 10. The Marble Hill winner Castle Star, who most recently was second to Go Bears Go in the Railway, and the filly Hermana Estrella. But both are yet to race outside of Ireland, hence no official BHA rating yet. So that's how we stand going into the July meeting. Let's have a look at the July Stakes itself, shall we? It's a Group 2. And Eldrick Jones is the 11-4 favourite. Project Dante is 130. It's 5-1 for Ebro winner and 9-1 and upwards the rest. Let's start, though, Eddie, with Elise Dancer, shall we? You've picked out this horse, who was a winner at Carlisle last time. Yes,
you look at the front of the market and they're horses who've been winning in lesser company and then running big races at Royal Ascot. And Elise Dancer has the potential to make that jump as well, I think. You'll see him here travelling really strongly behind the leaders and then still on the bridle approaching the 2 furlong marker and quickly gaining the upper hand, and so much so that his jockey's able to ease down in the closing stages. The second horse has come out and been beaten in a maiden or a novice race at Nottingham, but I don't think he was suited by the track there. So Elise Dancer, who's just rated 88 in the initial 2-year-old rating. So he's got about a stone to find with the likes of Eldrick Jones. But he's the one who could make that step forward.
OK, let's take a look next at Dig 2. This is him running at Newmarket. I think he's going to like the return to 6 furlongs.
Absolutely. He's followed this up with a tremendous second from the wrong side, really, in the Windsor Castle at Royal Ascot, also over 5, when he's very, very strong at the finish. I think the 6 furlong's really going to help him. He outclassed the opposition there and then made that step forward. The step that we'd be looking for a horse like Ali's Dancer to make, but Dig 2's already done that. He's got his stablemate Ebro River in the race as well, who's also got strong form.
OK, let's move on to Eldrick Jones, shall we? This is him in action at Thirsk. He's gone on, of course, to finish second in the Coventry Stakes to Berkshire Shadow. You saw him in those top BHA performances to date.
Indeed, he's rated 103 now. And here at Thirsk, it doesn't look as though he's at a big disadvantage, but I think the standside horses were. He's just got beaten by a horse who went on to win a valuable seller next time at York, albeit been beaten since. Eldrick Jones was unlucky at Royal Ascot in that he was on the wrong side. Very good effort in the Coventry, form that's been pretty much upheld in Ireland by the 4th horse coming out and running very well.
Okay. Also rated 103 is Project Dante. He has since finished 3rd in the Norfolk Stakes, but we can show him here at York winning and beating Jadlan.
Indeed. Now, Jadwal got to lead halfway in this race at York, but was worn down by Project Dante. The second horse starts to come at him, but I got the impression that Project Dante was just idling a little bit. He's gone on to a good run when he was just a bit short of room late on in that race at Royal Ascot, the Norfolk. He's back. He's up to 6 furlongs now. It ought to suit him, but it's not a certainty. I think Dig 2 is more likely to enjoy the 6th furlong.
Yeah, me too. That would be where I'd be going with Dig 2. Let's take a look at the fillies equivalent, shall we? That is the Duchess of Cambridge. It's a Group 2 over 6 furlongs also. So they're the declared runners, 9 of them, and interesting in particular, Sandrine, who you would expect to be favourite. She was the winner of the Albany Stakes last time we saw her. But we're going to start by talking about Desert Dreamer, Should Have Been More, and Honey Sweet. They all encountered each other at Newmarket last month, Eddie.
Yeah, Desert Dreamer, who's established herself as a smart 2-year-old hold-up filly. She's always asked to do a lot, and she comes from last here to beat everything bar a horse System, who's also come from a long way back, but got the stands rail. That might have been an advantage. Desert Dreamer bound to be doing strong work at the finish, and I think she's a big player here.
Let's move on to Flotus, shall we? She ran at Goodwood. She has since run at Royal Ascot as well, and she was eased when beaten. She actually ran better than her bare finishing position suggests. Yeah,
and she's probably better than the Ascot run. A lot of things went against her that day. Very green early on. You'll see she pulled quite hard in the early stages. But once she got out and got rolling, she's comfortably clear of her rivals at Goodwood. Her second hasn't done a lot for the form, but as you can see, there virtually was no second. She apparently has been going well at Newmarket on the gallop since, and if she can bounce back, she'd have a really good chance.
OK, now this was a really good race at Kempton in May. It was won by Sandrine, and Oscula finished 3rd. It was quite an exciting finish, Eddie.
Yes, Oscula, who had the rails draw, or near the rails draw, was prominent throughout, if not leading. And she made a bold bid on and has gone on to much better things since. She won the Woodcote Stakes with some authority, which we'll probably see in a minute. But Sandrine well had her measure at the finish, and Sandrine's proved herself to be a group class filly since at Royal Ascot. And she, I think, is rightly favourite for this race.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Let's have a look at the Oscula run at Epsom that Eddie was talking about, the win in the Woodcote.
Made much of the running, if not all, and pulled right away in the closing stages, although the 3rd horse, Maybury, made a lot of ground out wide late. And she's run well in a fair race since at Newmarket. But you see Oscula, the thing about Oscula is she seems to have improved with every run, and even her latest 3rd was a good effort.
So what was your conclusion about the Duchess of Cambridge, Eddie?
I like Desert Dreamer. I think may well be overlooked in the betting, got good course form, but in the end you keep thinking Sandrine, a big, powerful filly, is going to keep on improving.
Okay. Eddie, thank you very much for your thoughts and your contribution to the knowledge. We're going to get some knowledge about the track now from the clerk of the course and director of racing, Michael Prosser.
Good morning to Racing TV viewers. Here we are on the wonderful July course. As you can see, the course is in absolutely pristine condition. This strip, the Standside course, has not been raced upon since last August. The current going description is good to firm. We had 8 millimetres of rain on Tuesday, but it was dry overnight, and it's been dry so far today on Wednesday. There is a chance for shower this afternoon, 50% chance for shower, 1 to 2 millimetres, nothing major. The forecast for Thursday and Friday is largely set fair. Only isolated showers in the picture at this point in time. Sunny spells, 21 to 22 degrees. We are all set for the most fantastic Moet Chandon July Festival, and we look forward to welcoming Racing TV viewers to the July course.
The milers we're particularly going to be focusing on are the fillies and mares who do their running over a mile, because we've got the Falmouth Stakes, the Tattersall's Falmouth Stakes. Let's first of all understand where it sits in the calendar, how it functions in the pattern. Now, it's promoted from Group 2 in 2004. That was a concerted pan-European initiative to encourage owners, and particularly owner breeders, to keep fillies and mares in Europe rather than relocating them to America. And horses that do well in the Falmouth might go on to the Sussex, but more likely these days you might see them in the Rothschild, the Matron, and also more ambitious targets. They could come back to the Rolling Mile at Newmarket for the Sun Chariot. That would be keeping against their own gender. If they're going to be more adventurous, they could try some of those other targets listed there. So those are the accolades for the Falmouth Stakes. Note that the fastest winner is Alice Springs. She holds the track record for this track, established in 2017. Obviously, that was before the remeasuring. We've had a couple of dual winners in Sonic Lady and Soviet Song. I'm joined by Fran Berry, who's going to be talking about the Falmouth Stakes with me. But first of all, let's understand where these horses that we're going to see on the Friday stand in terms of the rankings across Europe and also around the world. So these are the top European miling fillies. And in capital letters, those are the older horses. So Lady Bowthorpe tops those rankings at 117. I just point out November, who has got a domestic rating by the German handicapper of 115. That's not really reciprocated. She's since been beaten in fourth in the Coronation Stakes, where she got a BHA performance figure of 110. Corsamba, of course, won the Poule d'Essai des Peluches before finishing 11th in the Prix de Diane, went up to 10 furlongs. And Tarly is really interesting, trained by Pascal Barry, progressive and unbeaten in 2021, and a winner of the Group 2 Prix Sandringham last time. She's entered in the Matron Stakes, so it'll be interesting to see if she comes over. 7 of those 10 are entered in the Falmouth, and just to put it into some wider context, the top-rated European miler is Palace Pier, of course, on 125, the winner of the Queen Anne, and the top-rated miling filly in the world is Gran Allegria, who's trained in Japan, and she's on 121. Right, let's have a look at the Falmouth, shall we, Fran, and see what's running and also where they stand in the betting. 13 declared runners, so it's great to see a big field for this race, because quite often you don't have a race as competitive as this, but this is clearly an excellent addition. And let's have a look at how they bet. Alcohol free. The Coronation Stakes winner is joint favourite with Snow Lantern at 4-1. Mother Earth is 11-2. Prima Baccio is 6-1. Lady Bowthorpe, you just saw her top in the rankings, at 8-1. It's 10-1 and upwards the rest. Let's start, Fran, by talking about the 1,000 Guineas. Of course, it was won by Mother Earth. Saffron Beach was second, and Alcohol Free finished fifth.
That's right, Lydia. And keep an eye on Alcohol Free out of gates here in the purple Jeff Smith colours. When Thunder Beauty goes by her here just after the start, it sets her light and she ends up in the wing of the field. Mother Earth, in comparison, was held up behind the leaders, but made really smooth progress to go and challenge the leaders. Frankie Dettori and the Derek Smith Silks. She goes by Santa Barbara at this point. It's that turn of foot that Mother Earth showed from the 3 to the 2 to get into the race and go forward and take hold of it for me was quite taking. That was on fast ground. Mother Earth hasn't got on fast ground since then, and that could be interesting for me. Alcohol free, she was just too keen on the wing there. Oisin Murphy got her very relaxed in the Coronation Stakes at Ascot, but the ground was heavy there and she went around a bend.
You wanted to focus in particular on how alcohol-free can be at the start.
Very much so, yeah. I think this is key to her chance. We've seen in Fred Darling here at Newbury, out of gates, see the way she jumps. She's fresh now, it's first run of the year, but she runs away to her left there. Oisin reins her back to get cover. That didn't work out in the Guineas. Thunder Beauty here in the purple. Just keep an eye on this one. Billy Lee races by alcohol free. Oisin's just trying to get her settled here. As soon as Thunder Beauty goes by her, that sets her alight. And in the Coronation, Oisin was able to get her relaxed. She hit the gates in a similar manner, but he was able to rein her back against the hill on heavy ground, and she dropped her head with cover. And I think that's the key to her, Lydia. She can be ridden handy-ish, but she needs cover over this mile trip to switch off, or she could over-race.
This is her in the Cheveley Park.
Yes, and showing a tendency to go left at all stages under pressure. It's interesting. The only time she hasn't gone left under pressure was in the Coronation, and that again was on heavy ground. Here you are in the Guineas. She's going left under pressure, away from her rivals. Most horses tend to run towards the rivals. She's always going left. That's her tendency. No, they never. Cyrus, interesting over here at least. A lot of his progeny tend to go better on soft ground than what you'd expect. And she could well be that. She could excel with a cut for all that she is very effective on good ground. But in comparison to rivals, she might not let down as well on good or fast ground.
Okay, interesting. Ed Walker now, he withdrew Prima Bacio from the Coronation Stakes, didn't want to risk her in the testing ground. Let's have a look at her in action, shall we, Fran, in the Michael Seeley. She's winning on this occasion. She has Snow Lantern behind her in third.
Yeah, first point of this race is Snow Lantern broke well from an inside draw. Sean Levy has her relaxed, but wait to see this when there she goes on him. She latches onto the bridle with him, and she never, ever drops the bit until the 3 furlong marker when the race begins to develop. Prima Bacio was held up, switched off, ridden cold, weaved away through the field and showed a really sharp turn of foot here to go away and win, Lydia, and was very taken. That smooth action she's got, she'll be very effective on a sound surface. Snow Lantern in comparison back in third is beginning to weaken. You can excuse her that given the exertions that she did early on. However, come to Newmarket on Friday, both of them are going to be drawn 12 and 13 on the wing of the field, and both of their riders, you'd imagine, are going to be looking for some cover to get them relaxed in the first furlong at least.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the older horses, shall we? There's a whole collection of them that met earlier in the season, Fran, in the Dahlia Stakes.
That's right, yeah. Lady Beauthorpe, Indie Angel, Lavender's Blue and Queen Power, and they ran 1, 2, 3 in Royal Ascot and Duke of Cambridge as well. Indie Angel obviously improved and went on to be Lady Beauthorpe, who had a penalty for this win at Ascot. Queen Power, she was really more prominent here on this occasion than at Royal Ascot, and again, she's often at her best when held up. She finishes stronger if she's held on to, and Lady Beauthorpe on this occasion was much too strong, and perhaps track bias and maybe that £3 penalty swung things in the favour of Indie Angel at Royal Ascot. Lady Beauthorpe, I wonder, will they ride her a bit more prominently on Friday than they have done in the past?
Now, you've done us a pace map, haven't you, Fran? You've imagined how you think that the Tattersalls Falmouth Stakes is going to be run. And I wonder whether you could go through that for us and then also tell us whether you think any of these traditional tactics might be switched up for the July course? Yes,
very much so. The draws are out now, Lydia, so all the pace, confirmed pace runners are drawn low. Lavender Blue is drawn in stall 1. Saffron Beach, who's very much possible to go forward at a mile today, is drawn in stall 2. And Just Beautifully Made All in Musselburgh to win is drawn in stall 6. The hold-up horses, Prima Bacio, Snow Lantern, are drawn in 12 and 13 on the wing of the field, or to the right of the picture as we'll be looking at it. Queen Power is drawn in stall 5, and Alcohol Free is a nice draw in stall 8. Mother Earth stall 8 is Mother Earth to stall 9, Alcohol Free. I think for Oisin Murphy and Ryan Moore, they'd be happy to be drawn there. It gives them options going left or right depending on how the track plays in that day. And maybe Mother Earth might change tactics on her a little bit, given she's getting back to a firmer surface than she's encountered since the Guineas. She's been running on soft ground and hasn't a lot of ground to make up on both Alcohol Free and some of her rivals today.
And Fran, the winner is?
I keep coming back to Mother Earth, Lydia. All of her form on a sound surface is fantastic. Keeneland ran superbly well in the Breeders' Cup. Very taken winner of the Guineas. That turn of foot she used in the 3 to the 2 in Newmarket to get going. Ran well in France and ground it didn't suit. Ran extremely well the Coronation Stakes where it looked like alcohol free, excelled on the ground. If the ground is fast on Friday, I think Mother Earth is underrated as a Guineas winner.
OK, so those are Fran's thoughts about the filly milers that are all matching up in the Tattersalls Falmouth Stakes. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the very first edition, a taster of the knowledge. Hopefully there will be more to come. Next time we see you, it'll be for Qatar's Goodwood Festival. But in the meantime, enjoy the Moet et Chandon July Festival here on Racing TV from Newmarket. Bye-bye.